Hey, what's happening? So it's the 4 o'clock hour. We have another amazing, wrestling mind in our country. Awesome guy, Ryan Lancaster. He's a coach over at West Ottawa Wrestling Coach. West Ottawa Wrestling is where he's a coach, and that's also his alma mater. It's up in Michigan. He was an NCWA All-American, NCWA National Championship team he was a part of. He was a Collegiate All-American. He was an academic All-American. He was a high school Michigan State qualifier and a former Michigan national team coach. And he's on with us today, Coach Ryan Lancaster. Hey, Coach, what's up, man?
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute honor.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, I love it. I get to meet some cool people. Obviously, thanks again for setting up the Lee Kemp show. That was awesome. And
it's awesome. You got some heavy hitters on this program, man. I mean, between you got Kyle Klingman, Barry Davis, Lee Kemp, and then I'm going to try to step up my game a little bit. But those are some pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah, Kyle Klingman was awesome. Maybe I need to do that again because I kind of got the power went out and I had to bring him back. But man, he's awesome. For you too, he must be a really cool dude because you're a big historian and so is he. And yeah, that's got to be.
Yeah, the museum's awesome. It's great.
Yeah,
all the work he's doing there.
Man, so first of all, tell us about this off season. I don't think anybody's ever experienced anything like this. And what have you been doing to kind of keep your kids ready to go when we get to the other side of this?
So yeah, it's been very interesting. Obviously, I think that's the understatement. With my high school program at West Ottawa, it's in Holland, Michigan. We've been trying to find ways to sort of work within the system as opposed to around it. So, earlier this summer, I was sitting around and I was thinking, like, how can we run a wrestling practice without, making any physical contact, which is, quite the issue. So what I did is I kind of did some research and I went through and I found, I developed a shadow wrestling program. And what it is that, so we meet 2 days a week and go to like a park, a public park. We just get 6 feet apart and we just do wrestling technique and strategies that are like based on like Hindu Kush wrestling, which is like a traditional form of wrestling from India, as well as like traditional, like, shadow wrestling, which you're used to like in a wrestling room, visualization techniques, and do a little strength conditioning with that, and just trying to find ways to like, I guess reinvent wrestling until we can actually go and do it again. So just trying to keep the kids engaged, and I think it's worked so far.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, anything works for, I'm sure anything. And that's for the West Ottawa kids or the Mirabadon Training Center or both of them?
Oh, it's a little bit of both. So I have a couple different hats. So, West Ottawa, I became the head coach there about 5 years ago and took over the program. And it's been one that has not seen a lot of success historically. We've been 50 years. We've never had a conference title. And I like the challenge of that. I like being able to say we could be the first, and I want to be the first. So, and these kids are really hungry too. We got a lot of kids that want to get their names on the wall, get the recognition. So we're pushing them. But before I even got the job at West Ottawa, back in 2010, and you're sort of new to the circuit, but basically a lot of wrestling now is club based. If you want to get to the next level, you need to have a center or a place where wrestlers of certain skill levels can meet and train together. And so there wasn't anything like that really in West Michigan where I was at. So what I did is I just created my own program as Myrmidon Training Systems with my buddy Dan Kobosowski. And the Myrmidon itself comes from the Iliad, which is the epic by Homer. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Troy, but the men that served with Achilles were Myrmidon, and they were basically part of I won't bore you with all the mythology, but basically they were an elite fighting force that were revered by most Greek cultures. And so I like that name, the idea that this is someone you want to be. It's like a Myrmidon wrestler. Oh, he's a Myrmidon. It's like he's a Jedi. He's a knight or whatever. So that is really the concept that we pushed. And so So yeah, so the program Shadow Wrestling is run through my club, but really I push a lot of my West Ottawa guys there because I think it's important that, whether you're an elite wrestler or it's your first day, you should be out there learning more about this great sport. You should be involved any way you can be. So yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Well, so talk about how the greatest season came about with Lee Kemp. I know he talked about it a little bit, but talk about your involvement with it and kind of what you're doing to kind of promote it.
Yeah, so it was about a month ago. I actually was approached by my old college coach at Grand Valley. His name's Dave Mills, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. You should have him on the show if you haven't had him. He's a great guy.
Send him my link. I'm down.
I will definitely. I'm gonna text him after this. But so he's probably one of the founding fathers of West Michigan wrestling, as far as I'm concerned. He's pretty good. But at any rate, he is friends with everyone, and he reached out to me, and he did at the start of the COVID, the pandemic and all the quarantines we had. I worked with him on a project called the Mills 30-Day Challenge, which were every day we would post a video and it'd be a workout, like a half-hour workout. And he has a lot of pull. He's got a lot of friends in high places, as he likes to say. And so he was getting people like Barry Davis, like Lee Kemp, like Dan Gable, were contributing to this video series. And if you want, it's all on Facebook. You can go to Mills Wrestling and follow it, or you can go to his YouTube channel and watch him again. But anyway, so I helped him get that project going, and it was pretty successful. And then he, I guess, at one point Lee had reached out to Dave and was asking him questions about videos. And Coach Mills got me in contact with Coach Kemp, and we just hit it off. He basically had this program that he had filmed several years ago, and he wanted to. He asked me just point blank, is this a product that you think that we could sell? And I was like, absolutely. I mean, I went through the videos and was just amazed. There's a lot of mindset training out there. I'm a big fan of all that stuff. And it is a unique opportunity to be, if you use this program, it's like having Lee Kemp with you during the season. And having a guy at that level with his expertise and knowledge is just, I mean, it's unparalleled. You're not going to find anything like that. And so I was ready to jump on board with that. And so, yeah, basically I'm just helping him promote the program, and it's all on his website, leekemp.com. Just go to Your Greatest Season. You can check it out. Like, I highly recommend it. There's a bunch of little clips you can kind of watch through and see if you can get some of the philosophy, but overall it's got a lot of good stuff. So I highly recommend it for any serious athlete.
Cool. Yeah. So talk about Michigan wrestling. I mean, you wrestled there as a kid, you grew up there. Now you coach there. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, Pennsylvania, they're all known kind of as wrestling places. So, but still, where have you seen wrestling come from and grow? And tell us about Michigan wrestling. What makes it so great?
Well, I guess to do all that, to unpack all that, I give you a little bit of my background in the sport. So, and times have changed a lot, but I remember that I was always a big kid. And so I was playing on the playground one day, and a kid I was playing with, his dad was a wrestling coach, and his dad just happened to be there dropping off at school. And he saw me as this big kid. And he's like, hey, go tell that. Hey, he's like, hey, son, go tell that kid over there he should wrestle. Have him come over and talk to me. So I, didn't listen to mom. I went and talked to a complete stranger, at the playground. And he's like, you should try wrestling. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I did. I'll do that. So I came out to his practices and I loved it. It was great. And what it turned out is that it turns out that I was sort of like unknowingly part of like this weird 70s, 80s wrestling dynasty in West Michigan. Both my uncles, I did not know this at the time, they were All-Americans. One was like a national champion for Olivet Nazarene. He wrestled for Comstock Park High School, which is about 45 minutes from where I lived. And I had no idea. So they really pushed me early on, especially my uncle Dave, who wrestled for the defunct program in Grand Rapids. And he was my coach growing up. And there's a huge freestyle Greco scene. So I did a lot of that when I was younger, going through wrestling. And I got up to high school and, state qualifier, and ended up wrestling in college for Muskegon Community College, which is, about 35 minutes north of here. So I was pretty local. And I ended up traveling over to the east side of the state and wrestled for Eastern Michigan for a year, and unfortunately their program dropped, and that was one of the most important parts of my life, doing all that stuff. But I ended up coming back to Grand Valley, and there's a lot of stories in between there that I share with my kids. But I won't bore everyone today with it. But the point I'm getting at is like, I've been in a lot of different rooms in Michigan, and I've seen a lot of this. I've seen this sport grow so much, and there's a lot of positives I'm seeing. There's some negatives that we need to work out, but overall, like, Michigan wrestling is, it's pushing itself to its limits, and I like to see that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in this state, and much like the Florida Wrestling Room on Facebook, I started a group called the Michigan Wrestling Resource, and it's just great community. Everyone comes in and contributes camps and clinics and tournaments and discussions, and so like Michigan is a wrestling state. I would say that, and we're one of the top ones, and I'm really proud to be a part of that, and see these kids succeed at the national and eventually international level.
That's awesome. And I know that you were involved for a long time. You were the national team coach there. And
Yep. I was a board member. This is kind of fun. Okay, so I'll pitch this idea, and hopefully anyone listening across the country will want to pick up on it. So when I did the national team coaching because I had a younger brother. He's about 14 years younger than me. He wrestles for Grand Valley right now. But when he was going to the circuit, he was on the national team, and I really wanted to make sure that I was contributing. And I love freestyle and Greco. I love coaching it. And so anytime I get on out to Fargo and coach, it's my favorite part of the year. But so when I was elected to the board, I was the open director, which is, for Michigan USA, which is sort of a throwaway. It's for the guys 18 and older. It's completely like a dead, it's hard to find guys that want to wrestle who aren't in college. So what we did to resuscitate that was we had this thing called the legacy duels, right? So there were no weight classes. You just had 5 dudes, and we would meet at a tournament, and we would stop the tournament for one mat, and this like every Saturday or Sunday, once a week during the freestyle season, and one team would send a guy out, and then we would send another guy out to match him, and there would be handicaps. So let's say if you're like 300 pounds and this guy's 250 pounds, so the one guy got a handicap point for being 50 pounds heavier. And then you got handicap points for being older. So if you're like 50, and you're wrestling, you got extra points too. And there were like little one little periods, and it was just a blast. And we'd wrestle, and afterwards you go get a case of beer and go drink it. It was kind of like a 3-on-3, like a pickup game for wrestling. And it was so much fun, but it was just another hat. I got like 17 jobs. I just couldn't do it all the time. But if any other state wants to do it, I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun. You might need to get some waivers, for these old guys and oxygen tanks, but it was cool. So that was my start at USA.
That's a pretty cool story. And then, I mean, obviously, you're a big historian. I read your RyanLancaster.com, and you're a professor, and some pretty interesting stuff in there. Man, what brought on that love for history, and is your love for history just kind of American history, world history, sports history? Is it all the above? Do you dig into different types, or are you predominantly in one direction?
Well, so my story with that is, like most kids, if you ever get interested in history, usually it's through the silver screen or through like TV. And I remember like growing up, I loved the movie Braveheart. I loved that so much, and I wanted to know more about that. And so even before that too, I guess the biggest thing I say is like, I was, before I could even read, I was going through old National Geographics that my grandma had, and just seeing like pictures of the Titanic, and I can't really read at this point. And so I was like, what is this? And there's a famous a statue of from Pompeii of this dog that had basically, I don't know if you know the story of Pompeii, but there's an in about 2,000 years ago, there was an explosion from a volcanic eruption, and the ash and embers like just engulfed the city. Within 30 seconds, it's gone. And these people were trapped, frozen in time. And basically, their bodies start to dissolve, and you get these little cavities in the rock. And, anthropologists went through and like put plaster of Paris in there, and then cracked out the plaster of Paris, the porises, and he found these essentially statues of people in their very last minutes or seconds of life. It's eerie, but also like fascinating. And there was like this dog, and it was still chained up, and it's like covering its nose. And I remember as a kid being like, I want to know more about this dog. Like, what was his name? What did dogs eat in Rome? Like, why was he chained up? What was going on in his mind? And so I just got infatuated with history. And so like I said, I watch movies, and I remember I like things like war movies, of course, like Patriot and The Patriot with Mel Gibson and Braveheart. And it's funny is you get into it, then you realize, oh, none of this is historically accurate whatsoever. This is all just fiction. And so, I sort of ruin movies now because you'll be watching a historical movie drama, and I'll be like, well, actually, this is what happened. So people don't like watching movies with me, but so yeah, I just went through high school, and I knew I wanted to wrestle. So I went to community college and wrestled in Muskegon. And then I was like, as I realized I just really like my history classes. And so I went through, and I ended up getting my master's degree, and I went back to my alma mater at Muskegon too. So I teach there and work for West Iowa School District. So apparently I don't go very far from home. I just got all my jobs are here. So, and I just started teaching, and yeah, I got my master's in American history. So I did that because, world history is interesting, but I figured, like there's probably more of a need for teaching American history here in this country, right? So I kind of specialized. And at first I was like, I kind of thought American history was boring, there's no one swinging swords in anyone, there's no giant plagues, I thought, until I did some more research. But
Greek wrestling.
Yeah, there's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of fun stuff. And so, but as I studied more, I just became infatuated. I love the history of this country. It's like amazing. So, and that's sort of my expertise. And obviously, I teach at Muskegon. There's a wrestling team there, so I try to tell, hey, sign up for my class, kids, and we'll talk a little wrestling too. So I try to throw in a little bit of historic events as far as American wrestling goes. So
That's awesome. That seems fun. And I know you had said you've been over to the Hall of Fame, and I've never been, but I hear it's pretty interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's if I'm kind of like I've become a student of the sport too. I'm the kind of guy where I'll go down a wormhole and watch Ohio State, Iowa, 1995 duel, and just see how that I don't know how it turned out, so I can just watch it like it's live. And so I love documentaries about the sport, and so yeah, if you become an aficionado of the sport, you got to go. It's like our mecca. It's just a lot of cool artifacts there you can see, and so I highly recommend it. It's really cool to see. So if you can make it out there, you should go.
I would love to. How about World Wrestling Live from the National Hall of Fame? That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I got to reach out to Mr. Klingman.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he'll gladly host you. They're pretty accommodating, so it's good.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, it's cool, man. I mean, I've got some pretty cool questions for you. Ready?
Sure. Yeah.
First of all, was there anything you wanted to talk about more other than what we talked about? Or was there anything I missed? Is there anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah. So I guess I'll premise it this way, and I don't want to get on my soapbox about the sport, but there is, but I will for a second. There is sort of like this meritocracy of wrestling right now, which I'm not liking to see. Is that it's a very pay to play. If you want to be successful, you have to spend a lot of money, and you have to go to expensive clubs. You have to get expensive training and go to get expensive gear and all those things. And I don't like seeing that. And so what I've done with Myrmidon, my club, and even at West Iowa High School where I work with those kids, we have an underprivileged group of kids that just aren't getting opportunities. I'm glad there's something like Beat the Streets. But I guess the biggest thing I want to urge people is if you have great ideas, share them. I think there's so many great resources on Facebook that I'll go through, and I can find new ways to run my practice. I like seeing us create opportunities for each other, and not so much not to make a buck. That's what I like about this sport. There's so many people that are like, you can email them like, hey, I see you do this youth league. How do you run that youth league? They're not going to be like, well, for $199, I'll send you my PDF. Like, no, they're here. What's your email? I'll send it to you. This is what I do. I'll give you advice. And so I love the free exchange of ideas. I just want to see us keep doing that. I want to see people making low, cost opportunities for kids, because this is like, as you probably noticed, this is the greatest sport. And I think everyone should be involved at one point or another in any capacity they can be. And so if we can create low cost events and low cost opportunities, you're going to affect way more people. And so I keep urging coaches, let's keep trying to find ways to, make this an entry level sport where, like, you want to do the sport, you find you a pair of shoes or whatever. So, and I applaud all the coaches that do that. It's really awesome. So I
Yeah,
guess that's my soapbox, I guess.
yeah, and it seems like just in my short time of walking into some different rooms, there's usually like a box in the corner.
Yeah.
Where you get the old
Yeah.
shit stuff, and I know, talking to a few club owners that I've spoken to through this, maybe not on the air but off the air and in person. I know that the club that my kids are in have told me this before, but they say, look, if there's a kid or a family that that they want to get involved, but they just maybe monetarily they're not there, just let us know, and we'll work it out with them. So I think,
Yeah.
but I think that's more of like that secret coup. It's like, hey, it's secret, don't say anything.
Yeah. I get that. And I think our program, our sports are really good about that. Wrestling's really good about helping out other people,
But I just
and
think
there's nothing against that. I think you should make
people are
money off it.
embarrassed. A lot of people in that situation are embarrassed to ask or speak up.
Yeah.
So I would say to families out there that have a young man or young woman that's, starting out in the sport, but maybe can't afford that coach or can't afford that thing. Have you asked that coach? Have you picked up the phone? Have you sent them a message? Have you even asked the question? Because I think you will be surprised at how many coaches would say, you know what, I got an hour on Saturday mornings that aren't filled. Why don't you bring your kid by and I'll give them some instruction. I think, just speak up, because there's people out there that'll definitely help. And yeah, like you said, give back. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I think, like I said, most people are good about that, but I guess my urge to people is like, if every coach in this country dedicated like one free event, they did like one free camp, one free clinic, one free tournament, one free whatever. Like, just think of the opportunities that you would open up for like people all over this country that don't have access to things. I think it'd be just so great, And like I said, I like maybe some things, maybe we're trending more towards these fancy events, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of opportunities, which is good for the sport. So there's that. Yep. And I guess, and one more thing I wanted to mention too is, kind of piggybacking on this whole concept, is what's great about this sport too is how this free flow of information is that there's so many opportunities to learn online. I mean, the NWCA does this fantastic seminar series that I've been going to. I can learn from, Tom Ryan from Ohio State for free. John Trench just gave a lecture on women's equity in sports. If you look for it, there's so many opportunities to go learn stuff and utensils to help you get better as a coach. Like, if you feel like you're struggling or you need something, there's an opportunity out there, and it's probably, there might be a free opportunity to learn too. So, just keep using social media to dig through and find stuff. And you got stuff like your, Ward Live Exchange. Like, I think that'd be a good place for people to go and to, like, bounce their ideas off or give their opportunities. I'm part of a program called Coaching Boys into Men, CBIM, and what it is, we're focused on, teaching boys, how the name says, to be men. We're teaching them life skills. We're teaching them about respecting women, things like that, because there's a lot of an underprivileged group that don't have fathers at home, and us coaches, we have to step up and be dads sometimes. And I love that opportunity. But there's resources to even help you do stuff like that. So even the uncomfortable questions you don't want to answer, like, there's opportunities for you to learn and to find people, like-minded people, to help you. So yeah, learn and grow the sport. Those are my two things I guess I wanted to leave with. So
I like it.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So
Let's do these questions.
Windmill Island or Dutch Village?
I prefer Dutch Village, but Windmill Island's really cool. If you get a chance to go out there, there's an actual windmill brought over from the Netherlands from World War II, and actually has bullet holes from the Nazis, and they're shooting at it. So if you're if you're history buff, go to Windmill Island. If you want to go shop, go to Dutch Village. It's a good question.
Coach Cleveland, Coach Charlie Cleveland Morgan said, representing the great state of Michigan.
Yes,
Uh,
love it.
Ottawa Beach Inn or Beach Place?
So Ottawa Beach Inn or Beechwood Inn? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the two burger places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, they're both good watering holes. I would probably Ottawa Beach Inn. OBI is probably the best. I go there sometimes after work. Very rarely, but I will. But I would say if you had to get a burger, you got to go to Goog's, Goog. It's got some crazy, crazy burgers, cold beer. That's probably my go-to place.
I like it.
If you're ever in Holland, check that one out.
When in Holland. Holland Museum or Crazy Yadega Art Museum?
Okay, so this is not a fair question because I actually used to work at the Holland Public Museum. So when I was interning there while I wrestled at Grand Valley, and I worked in the archives and collections, and it was so cool, man. Like I was helping us put accession numbers on things, and so like I would open up a box full of peanuts and I'd pull out a human skull. I'm like, whose is this? And it was a gift. It was a gift from the Dutch. They brought it to the mayor 150 years ago. It's weird. Or there's like a bazooka just chilling in the collections. And so, yeah, I would say if you go to the museum, it's good, but ask if you can get a tour of the collection. See if my buddy Rick Jenkins is working. He'll hook you up.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Pepinos or Mario's?
Those are both in walking distance of me. Pepinos, for sure. I do a lot of business through Pepinos. All our tournaments and clubs, we use Pepinos pizza. So it's an unofficial sponsorship. So yeah, I got to go with Pepinos.
All right. Holland State Park or Van Farm Park?
Holland State for sure. This is a unknown, a best kept secret of Holland, Michigan, is we have the best freshwater beaches in the world. Between Grand Haven, which is about 15 minutes north, and Holland, you're not going to find nicer sand beaches of freshwater lakes anywhere. Holland State Park is a must if you're in town. You got to go there.
Any alligators?
No,
Good.
We're good.
I'm good then. Daddy-O's or Betty K's?
Daddy-O's for sure. Oh, you gotta get Daddy-O's. Man, you did your research. This is good.
Yeah.
You get ribs and Kool-Aid, and it's a good deal. I actually used to live down there, downtown Holland. It's really good.
I like ribs and Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it's delicious.
All right, Big Red Lighthouse or Capone House?
I've actually never seen the Capone House. Oh, you mean the Capone House?
Capone, there you go.
Yeah, it's okay. So there actually, why I mentioned that is there actually was apparently an alleged hideout of Al Capone, which is in Grand Haven. I've never been there, but I've heard rumors of it. But the Capone House, I would recommend that because when I worked at the Holland Museum, I used to give tours there. So
nice.
I get to see what it was like. You live in see the mayor's house, and if imperial or Gilded Age America is interesting to you, go check out the Capone House. It's pretty interesting.
That's awesome. All right, so Baja Grill or margaritas?
Margaritas, absolutely. Those are probably the best tacos ever. So that's not just a Holland thing. That's just a fact. We have a very large Hispanic community up here, and we have delicious food. I love it. You gotta try it.
Like it. John Ball Zoo or Vineyard or the Vineyard Room?
John Ball. I just like zoos. Honestly, it's pretty impressive. I mean, back when I was a kid, they didn't have so many animals, but now they do. So it's top flight. I would go to John Ball Zoo. Sure.
I like it. And so for a fancy night, do you go Butch's or Sandy Point?
Sandy Point actually is now a place called the Beach House, but I prefer that. But I gotta tell you, if you are ever in Holland, you want to impress someone, bring them to Butch's Dry Dock. That's a good place.
Butch's Dry Dock.
Yep. My wife insists that. So That's where she likes to go.
Oh, you're gonna pick Butch's.
Yep, that's where I'm going tonight. Apparently, if she's watching.
Oh,
this.
look at that! Because I put Butch's Dry Dock or Sandy Point. So
Yeah,
perfect. I like it. Butch's Dry
you
Dock.
working for my wife.
Yeah, well, she messaged me. She's like, "Hey, ask him this question because I want to go there for dinner."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Sure.
Yeah, probably not, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hi, honey. It's good. Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Please keep referring your friends. And yeah, I mean, Lee Kemp, he was pretty good. So thanks for getting him on.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you, man, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think in wrestling media, we focus so much on like the 1%, the world champ, the Olympic champ or whatever. But like you're telling the story of everyone, and you're interviewing kids, you're interviewing coaches, and fans and wrestlers. Like you open up a whole, everyone has a story, and we get to hear it through the show. So I really love what you're doing. So keep doing what you're doing. Let's listen to everyone's story about wrestling. It's great.
I appreciate you. And thank you so much. And like I said, anybody that you think will bring value, send them my link. And
You got it. I'll start sending some emails after this.
For sure. Hey, you take care, man. And have a great day.
Thanks, you too, man.